Good day everyone, by the way I am Vernon G. Talendam and I am going to discuss about my crisis management plan which is all about climate change. Now, let me just share you that why do I chose that crisis. Well, of course, climate change is the global crisis that we are facing right now. So that is why we are going to prevent that from causing a major effect in our country or in our world. So I chose this just to make sure that we are going to have at least prevent it from causing more damages. So without further ado, let's start my presentation. And now let's start from my title, which is all about climate change crisis management plan. So prepared by Vernon G. Talanda. So let us proceed to the risk analysis. Now, the Philippines is the third most vulnerable country to climate change according to the 2017 World Risk Report. The impacts of climate change in the Philippines are immense, including annual losses in gross domestic product or GDP, changes in rainfall patterns and distributions, droughts, threats and to biodiversity and food security, sea level rise, public health risk, and endangerment of vulnerable groups such as women and indigenous people. We may not see it now, but we are slightly experiencing this effect in the last decades. Climate change crisis management plan will help us to manage the effect as well as to mitigate the circumstances over time. If we have the idea of what is happening in our surroundings, then we can prevent the huge effect on it, not only in our area, region, and country, but it can contribute to the world. We may not see it as a major problem right now, but then in the future it will really greatly affect our Earth tremendously. And the more it causes as time goes by, then it will, you know, give trouble to everyone, which can make our life difficult to adapt in the changes in our surroundings. A crisis, especially climate change. So we have the climate change conditions like sea level rises. So the activity, if you are near in the areas of bodies of water, then your crisis response that you always be aware and informed by the news. Always prepare yourself no matter what happened. Keep your distance in the sea when it needed as instructions of the local government. So these are the things that you need to remember when this climate change conditions arises. So next we have drought. So the activities when you're doing agricultural crops and engaging in fisheries. So your crisis response, you must always be aware and inform the report on this event. Then always rehydrate yourself, preserve food and save water. Keep your body fresh and cool because in the drought seasons we may experiencing a long and increasing of temperature. So no rain at that time. So there will be possibilities that our in the agricultural aspects and any fisheries will be affected. So preserving and saving water and food is a great choice. Then next, climate change conditions, we have the floods due to heavy rain. So it is also the effect of the climate change. So the activity is when you are in your house or elsewhere. So the crisis response that you must stay calm and ready at all times. Be sure to ready all necessary things for evacuation. Then keep in touch with the news. So evacuate yourself when you are prone to affected sudden water level rise. So for example, if you are near in the ocean, the river or etc. Then if you are stuck in the flood, then contact for help in your local rescuer. So you may ask for help if really needed. Then the last one we have the increase of temperature or heat waves. So these are also the effect of climate change. So when the activity is when you are in your house or doing outing together with your family or friends. So your crime crisis response, that you keep yourself hydrated, then wear appropriate clothes like um, um, not the thick clothes. Then keep in touch with the news on what you really do. Then protect your skin by using SPRs and not exposing too much to the sunlight so that your skin will not be affected to any harmful radiation or any harmful effects of direct heat from the sunlight. So that is the activation protocol in my crisis management plan. So let's proceed to the next one. We have chain of command. So in this part, we are going to discuss about the members that composes of our climate change crisis management plan. So we have the crisis manager, Vernon G. Talandang. So it is responsible for planning and implementing the response to the crisis, to supervise the subordinates, and manage recovery plans and establish solutions to prevent major effects. So he is the one who will going to supervise and manage recovery plans in the management plan. So the next we have the operating officer. So it will conducted by Jennifer Gacko. So she is responsible for organizing policies and programs in the organizations, the compliance and oversee projects and budgets allocated in maintaining eco-friendly environment. So that is the job for the operating officer. Then next we have the financial officer. So he is Fernando Ibok. So he is the one who is responsible for overseeing the financial transactions of the organizations, including managing the donations and other finances or financial expenses. So that is the work of the financial officer. Then next we have the technology officer. So she is Lenchel Peya, the one who will going to do this job. So she is responsible for information and communication in the public, government, and other countries, which includes creating innovations and inventions to help in prevention of climate change. Then the last one, we have the researcher head, which will lead by Mr. Pablo Inog. So he is responsible for researching with the climate changes and keeping in touch with the NASA and other government agencies and studying innovations and inventions. So that is the chain of command of my climate change crisis management plan. Okay, next we have the command center plan. So this pertains to the base operation of the crisis management plan. So, of course, National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council office will be the main command center plan with the regards with management and organizing plans for handling climate change crisis. So that is the command center plan of our climate change crisis management plan. Then we can also have our joint participation in command center plan in regional offices as well as cities and local community level for easy and convenient in partaking actions with regards with climate change crisis. This management plan needed the services of wide coverage of scope of transferring information as well as the facilities for creating and preventing and mitigating studies in climate change. Okay, let us proceed to the next one. We have response action. So these are the response that we need to do in facing those climate changes, certain conditions. So considering that the management plan is not only for crisis responses, but as well as prevention or just limiting the major effects, then it includes disaster preparedness, and response and disaster prevention and mitigation. So we have two. So the first one we have disaster preparedness and response. So if there will be certain climate change conditions such as El Nino, so if we are going to experiencing El Nino, then there will be preparations such as supplications of enough water supply, preparing for the conservation of water in farmers, in their crops, and as well as fisheries. Then aside from that, there will be raised public awareness about those hazards, vulnerabilities, and risks, their nature effects. Then we have also early warning signs. So we're going to have an early warning signs to warn our farmers. And also we have the counter measures in order to prevent and just to have solutions when we are facing El Nino. Then next we have heavy rain causes floods. So this is the effects of climate change. So the preparations, then there will be rescue operations if really major causes or major effects of climate change or floods. So there will be rescue operations to help gather people in safe evacuation centers. Then of course providing food and water until safety announced. So last one, we have loss of wildlife and biodiversity, resulting chaos of different countries. So if climate change continues affects our environment, then there will be tendency that huge loss of wildlife resources and biodiversity. So if that happens, then there will be chaos in different countries because of scarcity or shortage of supplies of food. So the preparations, then there will be protections and security from our police and military agencies. Then we can also adapt to have innovations and inventions to address loss of wildlife and natural resources. So we have this. So that is the first one. Then the next we have disaster prevention and mitigation. So this is also the things that we are going to respond action in times of climate change. So priorities, for example, if we are going to have water sufficiency, so we have results or we are going to have a prevention and mitigation in order to solve or address water sufficiency. So we have planning about having infrastructures when sudden rising of temperature, like creating huge reservoirs, so storing of water for storing huge amount of water supply. Then promoting conservation of water and manage water supply and demand. So in in that way, we can have the solution in water sufficiency. Then another priority that we are going to prioritize is the food security. So assumes that we are having food shortage. Then due to lack of crops and other fisheries, foods because of climate change, then we need to conserve our food. So that is the thing that we need to do: conservation of food, help and support local farmers. So we need to support our local farmers in planting more and more crops from our country. Then next we have sustainable energy. So prioritizing to have and use renewable resources in order to mitigate the cost of climate change. So we are going to use sustainable energy like hydroelectricity, biomass, geothermal, and etc. So in order to conserve more energy that causes climate changes, like okay. So next we have knowledge on the crisis. So if we are going to prevent climate change, so we need to have knowledge about the climate change. So educating people the cause and effect of climate change, studying more about sciences, about mitigations, about adaptations and preventions to national, regional, to community level. So in that way, if we have knowledge about the crisis or the climate change, then we can solve in our own way to look for solutions like adaptations, mitigations, and etc. Then next one we have environmental stability. So the outcomes is protection and rehabilitations of wildlife, resources at any cost, and restoration of damages areas in order to recover and can be used someday. So the damage um, like forests, rainforests, so we need to restore that in order to have environmental stability. Then lastly, we have promoting eco-friendly environment. So in terms of using sustainable e-consumptions in different areas, then we need to promote strict implementations in reuse, reduce, and recycle of materials. And also cleanness, planting programs is priority. So that is our response action in climate change crisis. Okay, so next we have internal communication. So in internal communication, we have operational team, responsibility, and standard operating procedure. So under operational team, we have emergency responders and evacuation teams. So their responsibility is responsible for rescue operations in times of unpredictable weather conditions. It is responsible to save people lives and assist their needs. Then aside from that, we have then the standard operating procedure. They were going to rescue when flood arises, sudden rising of water levels, then increasing of temperatures, and any other effect of climate change. Then the first priority is to save life. Then under operational team, next we have researchers team. So their responsibility is responsible for studying more about the effect of and causes of climate change in our country, and it also aims to know the solutions and preventions for this crisis and to inform everybody. Then the standard operating procedure, we have to get informed through this global crisis, aims to provide us information on prevention, mitigation, and adaptation to certain changes to our weather. Then lastly, under operational team, we have the program, seminars, and training teams. So the responsibility is responsible for educating and propagating of information in order to gain knowledge about climate change crisis management plan. Then of course their standard operating procedure. Then they are prioritized to conduct training and programs in order to help people face climate crisis and handle things like this. And under external communication, these are the hotline numbers that we are going to contact in any emergency situation. So as we can see in the image, that is the emergency hotlines in our local and community level. Then under resources, so we are making up emergency plans and security measures in order to readily available when we are facing this climate change crisis. So of course we do need utilities, facilities, and any other fire trucks or rescuer trucks in order to help when times of floods caused by certain conditions of climate changes. So we have also identify, assess, and manage the hazard vulnerabilities and risks that may occur in the locality. So, of course, we are going to have a posters in the community level, in the social media platforms in order to inform everyone as a warning in preparation for climate change crisis. So that are the resources that we are needed when we are facing climate changes. And in the trainings, we are going to plan for practicing responding climate changes crisis with preparedness, mitigation, and prevention. So we have two trainings, especially in creating seminars, webinars, and trainings for preparation in prevention and mitigation of climate change crisis. So that is essential for us to be informed on what are we going to do in order to adapt if we have certain changes in the surroundings. Then also we have the in preparation to effect like floods, sea level rises, and unpredictable weather patterns and loss of wildlife and biodiversity. So we have this what we call the drills or any other safety precautions that are given to our community and other levels to the people in order to be well informed in facing this kind of certain conditions. Then lastly, we have review. So this climate change crisis management plan will help us to become readily available in facing this global crisis and aims to inform the effects and causes as well as how will we respond. Then next we have this management also plan might be changed for improvements and to be have better outcomes and results. Then we will have a quarterly evaluations and advices for reviews from professionals and experts. Then this crisis management plan also will serve as an overview and preparation to climate change, which aims to protect environment, wildlife resources, biodiversity, and people due to man-made causes. So remember this, climate change is sometimes misunderstood as being about changes in the weather. In reality, it is about changes in our very way of life by Paul Polman. So that is the end of my presentation. I hope you learned something from my climate change crisis management plan. And thank you for listening. God bless.